The presence of a quorum has been established and the meeting has been duly called. We don't have anything from executive session at this time. So as usual, we will start with the prayer and the pledge by Mr. Newsom.
May we bow. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, once again, will come to you, thanking you for the God that you are. God, we thank you for the district, Tyler Independent School District, and the individuals that work therein. God, we pray that you will continually watch over them and bless them throughout the summer. Pray that they can come back with a renewed spirit, that they can be ready to face the challenges that we're going to be facing this year. God, we pray that you will continually watch over them during the summer, that they can have a safe summer, enjoyable and appreciative. Lord, we thank you for the board that makes decisions that help to shape the structure of this district. We pray that we will always make decisions that is worthy of our children and that we can continually always put the children first. God, we thank you for the opportunity of serving. In Christ's name, let me pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. And now this time has been set aside for public participation. First, we have Ms. Carolyn Davis. Come on down.
Good evening, President Atkins, board members, and Dr. Crawford. I have three major topics. First one is immigration enforcement. The question begs to be asked, why has Tyler ISD not released a statement regarding your position and intentions surrounding immigration enforcement on school campuses? It's been 5 months since the initial request was made, and 3 additional requests have been made since then. Some neighboring school districts have done so. Why not Tyler ISD? Why keep students and parents wondering in fear? Do what's best for the students and families you serve. Please release a statement before the new school year starts. My second topic deals with third grade STAR reading tests, the straight passing results. My number one concern, why was a goal set for only about half of African American students to pass the third grade reading STAR test? Number 2, did you notice the goal and the passing rate for special ed students is closest to that of African American students than any other group? Think about that. Third grade math STAR test results. Number 1, the goal for African American students is even worse. It was lower than the goal for a reading test. I've already said the goal was about half for reading. It was even less than that for math. Number 2, did you notice the passing rate of African American students is the same as the passing rate for special ed students? To me, that speaks volumes. At the last board meeting, a board member stated the test results sound encouraging. One of the presenting administrators that was sitting there stated the highlights was the meets and masters part of the results. That particular person didn't think anyone really was satisfied with the results, that some of which I just called out. Lastly, From the discussion at the last school board meeting, it seems most of you have come to believe in the need to hire non-certified teachers, and you are in agreement with that. Apparently, the Texas legislature disagrees and plans to put a stop to it by 2030 or before. As a matter of fact, I'm sure you're aware, today was the first day of a special session, and it's very possible this topic will come up again. A Texas Tribune news article dated March 15th of this year states lawmakers want to turn the tide on the growing number of unprepared and uncertified teachers by restricting who can lead Texas classrooms. House lawmakers are steadfast on undoing the loophole they created after new research sounded the alarm on the impact of unprepared teachers on student learning. Students with new uncertified teachers lost, count them, 4 months of learning in reading and 3 months in math. This is what the research says. They miss class more than students with certified teachers, a signal of being disengaged in that classroom. I've been speaking against this for over 10 years. I have always thought there is a greater chance of a certified teacher being successful in the classroom from day one, having completed the educational courses, 1 or 2 semesters of student teaching, and passed the state exam. I'm almost finished. It is my continued hope and suggestion that over the next 5 years, you use whatever incentives or stipends you can to create a desire in as many Tyler ISD students, especially early college students, to become Tyler ISD teachers. Grow your own teachers. Thank you.
Thank you. Emily Pinal.
Good evening, President and school board members. Hello again. Again, I am a Tyler SD a parent, a new one. And again, I just want to say it is incredibly upsetting that members of this community have to keep coming back and feel the need to call for a communication statement from the district. The communications role in this district is clear: to inform families about changes that impact them, especially those resulting from the decisions that are being made at the state or federal level, and to do so in a way that is both timely and accessible. This is not an optional responsibility. It is a core function that builds trust and supports in families in order for them to plan for the futures. Just as the superintendent provides legislative updates directly to the board, the communications team should be providing those same updates to families and staff. A few days ago, Longview ISD released a clear and public statement detailing exactly how much of their funding has already been frozen, not will be, but is frozen. They're actively working with their staff and their community on how to move forward. Their focus has been transparency and reassurance, 2 things that are solely missing in this board. Families should not have to chase down critical information or wonder how decisions are made at the state and federal level that are impacting their schools and children. Communication should not be reactive, and it should not be reserved for moments of crisis. It should be ongoing, honest, and rooted in respect for the people in this district, and that's what they deserve. And this is especially true for our immigrant families who often face additional barriers to information and who rely heavily on the district for timely, accurate, and culturally responsive communication. This district has a responsibility to show that it prioritizes families by communicating clearly, planning proactively, and building trust through transparency. That is how this district shows its values to families, by keeping them informed, involved, and prepared for what lies ahead. And need I remind you all, most of you ran on these values when y'all ran for office for this exact position. And most of them who voted for y'all are waiting for that. And you all have access to my information. I have it on every paper that I have to fill out when I come here. And no one has reached out or acknowledged that we've been here, coming back and back and back. And what's frustrating is the only acknowledgement that has been received is by Cody Leverett's via text acknowledgement. But it's a full house here, and I'm not the only one with this sentiment that has been outreaching to y'all outside of this way, that many of you are starting to communicate within each other, saying that this is not how you address things. We shouldn't have to tell y'all how to do y'all's jobs as elected officials. That's the sad part. Thank you.
Thank you. Matthew Bailey?
Good evening, members of the board. Continuing now, since February of this year, I, on behalf of Tyler-based East Texas Monarchs, make our demand to the Tyler ISD Board to create and release a statement detailing its intentions on how it may protect the undocumented students on Tyler ISD school grounds. Though I find it obvious, it still remains in need of pronouncing that at the end of the day, no matter what each of us individually understand, we are speaking about the lives of children. The lives that they will continue as they leave this campus, go home to their family, go out with their friends in town, or stick around for an after-school activity, and the lives that they will continue when returning back to school the next day. Our fear stems from this life within the school and the relationship that each of these children have with their parents as they go out about their own daily lives. Saying undocumented students' parents are picked up by immigration enforcement and carted away to a detention center far from here. Who will pick up that child at the end of the workday? Who will be trusted and who will be a trusted and authorized contact? How and where do parents update their existing list of authorized contacts for handling their child? All the while, the child is left alone at the school, wondering where everyone they trust has gone as the sun continues to lower on the horizon. Furthermore, how would Tyler ISD intend to cooperate with federal immigration officials if and when they come knocking at the school door? Would confidential files be shared? Would HIPAA be used to protect these undocumented students from federal officials wanting to seize their medical papers that describe their immigration status? And finally, how would the school intend on helping their students manage these new stresses of immigration crackdowns? As well as we have already seen one child not far from here take her own life, 11-year-old Jocelyn Carranza, due to bullying and fear about her and her family's immigration status. Would counseling provided by professionals, by the school, or by some other trusted means be promoted to students and families? We find these questions and questions similar to these to be the most pressing here at Tyler ISD. We simply demand for transparency in these obviously trying times to help quell much of the anxiety and the fears spreading throughout our communities. A statement answering these burning questions would only be reasonable, respectful, and justified. Now, I understand that some of these questions might already be answered in the school handbook. However, it must be known that many people need help going through the mountains of papers within the handbook. If these questions have already been answered in this statement, it may be simply just to put and point out these certain sections in the handbook to where people are easily able to digest them and be able to understand them. This is what we ask. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all for public announcement. Thank each of you for your comments. Now we're going to approve the minutes for May 19th, 2025, June 5th, 2025, and June 16th, 2025. Could I get a motion?
I move we approve the minutes.
All in favor? Any opposed? Moved and second. Continuous improvement student outcomes, but we get a report for competitive academic update.
As part of your board monitoring calendar, board, we have Dr. Kristen Walls, Executive Director of College and Career, to give you a spring update for competitive academics. We do a lot of reporting for extracurricular activities, band, athletics, academicians, and mathletes. We like to celebrate their success as well. Dr. Walls, for your report.
Good evening.
Good
Let me
evening.
make sure I get this so you can hear me. Okay. Board President Atkins, trustees, and Dr. Crawford, good to see y'all. Today, this is going to be short but sweet about the competitive academics for the late spring. So we're going to kick off with the elementary school UIL. This year, we had approximately the same number of students that participated. We start off in the elementary, more or less just kind of having them get excited about competing in the academic realm. We don't take first place, second place, third place for the different schools at that level. We just want them to participate, but we had a really good showing this year. For middle school, this year we had 223 participants. And in first place, Moore Middle School. Second was Three Lakes, and third place, Hubbard. And so each of the schools did have participants that placed, all the middle schools, but then they calculate all the scores and the numbers of students who participate. So this year, that was the results. And then in the high school realm, we had early college high school. There were 22 participants, and I'm pretty excited about high school because we had 68 more students participate this year overall for our high schools, so that's something that we've been working on. We had 16 regional qualifiers and 2 state qualifiers, one in spelling and one in science. Then at Tyler High, we had 46 participants, so that was definitely up from last year. We had no regional qualifiers this year, but many were first-time participants, so getting them excited about going in and starting to compete academically. And then at Legacy High School, we had 92 participants, about 50 more than last year. We had 7 regional qualifiers, and that was in persuasive speaking, current events, spelling, accounting, and calculator. And we had 1 state qualifier, which was Max Morales, and he was in calculator with that component. So great job for our students. And then in CTSOs, or Career and Technical Education Student Organizations, we had state contest participants 7 in Future Business Leaders of America. Now, we only have that CTSO at Tyler High, so all 17 went regionally and state. We also had 6 in DECA, which was half and half. That was 3 Legacy, 3 Tyler High students, 2 Legacy students from Health Occupation Students of America. Skills USA was split as well. We had 4th place and 5th place and in that realm at the state level. And the TSA, or Technology Students of America, we had 16 participants. 2 placed in 2nd place, and that's Gavin Loudon and Max Pineda. And he also placed in 4th place. So then we had 3 10th place winners from there. And it's a picture of them this year. So TSA has consistently been doing really, really well. Health Occupations, this year they actually hosted the district level here at Caldwell and Legacy High School. And so exciting to see how many students were going to be participating in that. The competitive academics calendar, this kind of gives you an overview of how our year goes. Mostly in fall, we start recruiting, trying to get as many students that want to compete academically. The UIL Middle School District Meet is usually in February, then March. We start with elementary, and then the high school district meets. And they go all the way through May. So this is kind of a late report because finishes out at the end of May, and then national contests are usually in June. And that is my very brief report. Do you have any questions?
Questions, comments?
I have one question in regards to legacy. The
Sure.
number that doubled almost, or you said 50-plus students, how did they achieve that in 1 year? What do you think they did different than?
There's a new coordinator.
Ah,
So she contacted me and she said, I'm really going to be focusing my efforts on getting as many students as we possibly can. Same thing at Tyler High. So I've seen some differences in uptick. And then when I spoke with Early College High School, they said the same. They've been focusing on getting more and more students excited about competing.
okay. Great.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Business, legal, finance consent agenda. We have the approval of the 24-25 amended budget and conversation about that.
Good evening, Board. President Atkins, Dr. Crawford. I'm going to talk to you today about the budget proposal for 25-26. So you have two things with you. This is the presentation that's going to go over increases and decreases in revenue and expenses compared to the current year. And you also have a packet that's going to describe total revenue, total expenditures, and we'll talk about that a little bit after the presentation. So there's 4 revenue sources for the budget. State formula makes up 53.4% of the revenue, and local property tax makes up 43.2%. State formula revenue is up 2% from last year, and local property is 2% lower from last year. And we'll talk about why later. Federal revenue makes up a very small amount, and then there's some miscellaneous revenue as well. I do want to say there is a big disclaimer for local property tax revenue. We had to estimate some of these numbers. We got with the appraiser on how to estimate. There's some things coming out of the legislature that makes it hard to estimate. So the numbers we gave you, they're good estimates, but they're not perfect. We're going to get property values by the end of this week, and so we'll have better numbers next time we talk. So state formula. One of the biggest drivers of our revenue is our average daily attendance and weighted average daily attendance. That is up from the prior year estimation, 250 students, which equates to $1.3 million of revenue. We also have the allotment for basic costs. This is brand new with House Bill 2. It was an attempt to give schools more money for those fixed costs that are rising with inflation, such as insurance, utilities, those kind of things. That's $2 million. And there's other formula changes. That's about $700,000. A big portion of that is called the support staff retention allotment. And we are spending that requirement on the 5% increase for paraprofessionals and manual trades. Another increase is the local share has decreased because of the homestead exemptions that we'll talk about. This is an increase of $3.6 million in state revenue. So there's a relationship with property values and state funding. When property values go up, our tax effort goes up and our state funding goes down. But what's happening, we think, this year is that our property values are going down, our tax effort goes down, and our state funding goes up. The next 3 things, these are kind of flow-through items. You have revenue that perfectly equals expenses. So the first is the teacher retention allotment. This is what we've talked a lot about with the raises for teachers. 3 or 4 years of experience, they get a $2,500 raise, and 5 and above, they get $5,000. We're being perfectly funded for that, and that's about $5.5 million. And the teacher incentive allotment, you guys know about that. It's gone up $2 million because the program has expanded both in those who qualify and who have earned the award. TRS on behalf, this is a percentage of salaries. So when we see salaries go up, we see TRS on behalf go up. So that revenue perfectly equals an expense on the other side. So overall, state revenue is going up $16.1 million. Local property taxes, There's going to be two things that voters will approve or disapprove in November. There's a $40,000 proposed increase to the homestead exemption and $50,000 increase for the over 65 and disabled homestead exemption. If those two things weren't there, we would be proposing a 10% increase in values. However, we're going to say that they are pretty much offset and values are going to be flat, but the tax levy is going down, which is indicating a reduction of local tax revenue of about $3.6 million. And again, this is subject to change. We'll definitely have more information. Then we have federal revenue. The SHARS program, this is our Medicaid billing. You may have heard some things about the Medicaid program. It is very different than it was when school districts first got into it. The requirements and the effort on the schools part, where they have to actually go in and bill for these services, has gone way up, and the funding and flexibility has gone way down. So when we did a cost-benefit analysis, the cost way exceeded the benefit, and so we are exiting the program, which is a $1 million decrease to the budget. Additionally, ESSER made up a big portion of some federal funds in the past. We spent it all 2 years ago, but this past year, we did have some residual indirect costs that were part of the budget. So overall, federal revenues decreasing $1.1 million. Then we've got some other revenue that's less material. Tuition income, this is for our pre-Ks. The rate has not gone up, but enrollment has gone up. Interest income, slightly decreased in rates, and athletic income increase based on activity. So a net decrease of $160,000. Overall revenue is projected to increase $11.34 million. So let's talk about where that revenue is being allocated in expenditures. So the biggest area is payroll and benefits. The first is teacher retention allotment. That's that raise for teachers. For non-teachers, we've got 3% of the midpoint for professionals, 5% for paras and manual trades. And then for stipends, overtime, and substitutes, this is an increase in our estimation of those costs, not a change in the rates. Then we have the teacher retirement above state minimum. I just have an interesting comment on this. If you don't know what this is, the state requires you pay a minimum salary to teachers. A first-year teacher is supposed to make $34,000, or a minimum of $34,000, and we pay above that. So we are required to pay a percentage fee, sort of, on the difference. So $52,000 minus $34,000, we're paying a percentage fee. They did not increase these state minimum rates for the same increase that they mandated teacher raises, which means they are getting more revenue because every single district is going to have a bigger separation between the amount they pay above the state minimum. Teacher incentive allotment, we talked about that increasing, TRS on behalf as well. And then finally, unemployment claims have increased slightly. This is a net increase of $11.3 million. And if you remember the amount that we said revenue was, it was 11.34. So 99.9% of the increase in revenue is being spent on payroll increases. This category, instruction and instructional support, there's an increase in campus allotments. This is not due to the amount per student, but an increase in enrollment. The regional day school for the deaf, this is made up of multiple school districts, so when Tyler ISD has more students in the program, it does cost the district more. And an increase in career and technology, this is because the CCMR allotment increased, and it's due to rising costs and participation in certifications required for accountability. Overall, that's costing about $181,000. Then we've got the department operating budgets. Technology contracts, that's not due to an elimination of anything we're offering, just it's how the contracts worked out this year. They cost less than last year. Utilities and property insurance increased, but not as much as we were expecting them to, so that was a positive. The SHARS admin expense, that program is eliminated, so we no longer have that expense. Preventive maintenance funds, since that is 3 pennies on our tax rate, we talked about local property taxes going down, so our preventive maintenance fund increase will go down as well this year. There's an increase in facility maintenance due to lawn care contract that came out after the budget was proposed last year. And then a decrease in non-payroll state comp ed. So with this legislation, they changed the requirement on state comp ed spending. They said that state comp ed was meant to be like a cake, the extra, the something really good and special, but they realized that some of the districts were missing the meat and potatoes. And so they want to give us some flexibility to pay for the basic instruction that that was maybe missing. And so we aren't changing any of our supplemental offerings, but it does give us flexibility in this department category. Overall, that's a decrease of $173,000. So the total proposed expenditure increase is $11.34 million, which is exactly the increase for payroll, a balanced budget. So now I want to talk about the packet that you guys have. We're not going to go into detail on all of the things within it, but I do want to point out where you can find some more information if you do want to dive in and have any questions. So the first page, just table of contents. Page 1, you've got all the salaries, other expenditures, and then down at the bottom it shows total budget. Those are expenditures of $191 million and total revenue $191 million. So those two things equal. Up at the top, you see that payroll salary expense is $158 million, which makes up 83% of our. Page 2, this is just some of the extra payroll costs, calculation, and increases. Page 3, this is where you're going to find all of our schools, the expected enrollment, and the amount per student that each campus gets. The next page is where they actually fill out what they think their enrollment will be. In October, when we get snapshot data, we adjust their campus allotments to what their actual student enrollment, so that if they have a crazy increase,
Sorry, Ms. Russell, you're saying pages, but do you know which page they are in our?
Oh, sorry.
Workbook?
It says page 3A, and I do think it printed that way in your packet.
23? Thank you, sorry for that.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I think there's like double page numbers on these.
It says 23 and then page 3A under it.
This is where they actually fill out the amount or the enrollment, and you want to be as accurate as you can because you don't want to over estimate there. So page 4 through 6, these are going to be department budgets that you can look into specifically if you have more questions. Page 7, we have revenue, and the far right column, that's going to be what was approved last year for the 24-25 budget. Increases and decreases, and then where we are now adjusted. And then the far left column is going to be projected revenue for 25-26. Page 8, this is the current year levy. Again, disclaimer, these numbers are very preliminary. The net taxable value up top, 11.6 million, that is the main number that we had to estimate. So when that number changes, everything below it could also change. Right now, we're estimating that the M&O tax rate will remain flat and INS will decrease by 3 cents. So the overall tax rate would be 88 cents, but we will provide a tax rate for adoption later. Page 9 is going to be all of the changes that we discussed in the slideshow. These are the details of each of those things we talked about. And then finally, the debt service budget. That top number, 30 million, is going to be our debt service payments in 25-26. This drives the INS tax rate because we can only levy what we owe. So with that, that is all I have. If you have any questions.
Questions, comments?
Got a couple.
Go ahead. I got an easy one. So on the maintenance, you talked about it was an increase due to the lawn care and stuff, but I thought we approved that last year in the budget. So help me understand, because I remember that.
Yes,
oddly
it was
enough.
an amended budget that we did. We didn't have it on the adopted budget. And so this is all a comparison to the adopted.
To the original adopted budget. Okay, thank you.
Yes, you're right. We did specifically call it out in the amended budget.
Okay.
Is that because the bid split fiscal years? Well, I can't remember why it wasn't.
They came in right after we had to do the adopted budget.
okay.
Yeah,
So,
we actually approved it before it was in the budget,
Right.
but whatever.
Question. If you go back to the operating budget, so I think I spoke to you about this previously, this is stripping out salaries. And
Correct.
this is on a yearly projection, fiscal year 9/1 to 8/31. So if I'm looking at this and I say, okay, I pick an item here like athletics, $1.6 million in athletics. This is not coaches' salaries. This is not assistant coaches' salaries, not athletic director salaries. This is just operating expenses for that item.
correct.
Can you tell me what school improvement support, item 999 on the second page of that operating budget, what does that entail?
That
I
is
can kind of guess what the athletics operating budgets are, but like that one, what would that entail?
That is state comp ed. So that's the decrease we talked about. This is going to pay for some of the curriculum contracts that identify some at-risk students. We aren't changing the curriculum we're using, but that specific budget did decrease.
And then just on page 7, the general operating revenue projections, on the tuition summer/pre-K, the projected is $590,000. Do you know what percentage of that is like you're paid for pre-K? Stripping out the summer school stuff?
The vast majority. I'm not sure what the exact percentage is.
Over 90%?
Yes.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Couple of things. On page 7, page 27, page 7, you did say SHARS. So, we're not doing that, and you gave a reason. I missed the explanation as to why we're not.
So that is Medicaid billing. And so every single time that these teachers are taking these Medicaid eligible students to the bathroom, they're having to go and bill that they took the student to the bathroom. That is a very large burden on our educators. I'm just giving one example of things they bill for. There's lots of things. And then on top of that, they've changed the way that you have to bill and made it more cumbersome. And so when we do meet with them all, I know that they are going to be very, very excited. They're going to feel a sense of relief and be able to focus on education in the classroom.
So we're just going to eat the cost of that, or?
Well, actually, it's a $1 million decrease from the proposed budget, but actually this year, our actual revenue is probably less than $300,000. They have come back and just taken money. They've given us revenue and then come back and taken it back. We actually have one that's under review at the moment because they want to charge us, I can't think how much it is, maybe $250,000, and it's going to offset $250,000 of revenue and net to zero. So to the budget, it's a $1 million hit, but to actual revenue, it is pretty small.
Mr. Newsom, that's a federal thing. It's not a state thing. It's man, how many years ago did they come back in? 8 years ago, possibly, maybe even more. They've done reviews, and the feds have come back at Texas and said that things that we were counting for that can no longer be counted, and actually asked for some payment back from the state.
Yeah, one was from, I think, 2011. They said, you billed for this in 2011, and we want that money back. So they're just nitpicking things
Yeah,
at
the
this point.
service is still going to be provided to students.
Okay.
We're always going to make sure that we're doing that. So, you talk about Bo Shears. Bo Shears was a heavy SHARS, MAC, whatever. Do we even have MAC anymore?
We did. That's part of it.
Yeah, okay. So it used to be that acronym was SHARS and MAC. Think about Bo Shears and the severe and profound kids that we have over there that we continue to educate. We're going to continue to educate those. It's going to be the cumbersome bureaucratic minutia that our teachers have had to go through. It used to be beneficial for us. It used to be fruitful for us. We did receive quite a bit of revenue off of that, but it's going away.
Yeah, I want to say it was, even just a couple years ago, we were budgeting $3 million from it, and now it's going to be less than 300,000.
Right. Well, that's understandable. I know the individual Medicaid is a lot more complicated now than it was before as far as, and compensation, they are recouping a lot of their funds after individuals die. So they've changed a lot. You have to be real careful about that.
Anybody else?
Did you mention that, I guess our total federal revenue is 0.36%? Is that correct? So if people wonder, about losing something, that the Fed's purse strings are on 0.36 of 1% is where we are.
Yeah, the issue is the timing of. To be honest with you, I think that was the biggest surprise, that anything that we're going to suffer with is just going to be in the planning and the preparation of, and just like anything else, we'll figure out a way to fill that gap wherever we need to with local funding and state funding as well.
There was one other additional question in regards to the page 29, page 9. Looking at the payroll and benefit expenditures, there was a section for salary adjustment due to market change. We did not include that this year. Was that simply that? To me, it appears like it's a cost of living type thing that we put in under that particular payroll and benefits, but we did not include that, as well as the change in the FLSA that we had last year.
At the moment, there was one person that received an adjustment, and so this is just the preliminary. If that changes, and even if it doesn't, we will put the one line in there and put that amount. Since this is just preliminary, we didn't want to put that number out there before anything final.
Look, I have a new appreciation for public entities and the work that they do on these budgets. So I just want to thank you guys for grinding on this, and all the department heads for all the work that they do too. I know y'all are looking at it and y'all are guessing sometimes, so appreciate all the work.
Go ahead.
Just, you spoke of the base state salary schedule, and whenever you adopt something above that there is a fee to be paid. To whom?
TRS.
I just want to make sure we get that out there. So you get penalized for paying above the state base. Is that essentially?
Essentially.
Okay.
And the gap raised, because the ceiling raised, or the floor for salaries raised, but this one didn't. So it only raised slightly. So
Was it ever talked about during session, during legislative?
Yes. TRS did ask for additional funding from the legislature. I don't think they received it. I don't remember,
I'm
to
not
be honest
sure.
with you. It wasn't significant if it was what they asked for. And if they don't get that, then obviously it does get passed on to the local school board to consider as part of its budget to adopt. But no, there was not an increase in TRS, I don't believe.
One other question, because it came to me regarding the feeding our kids before school, and considering the state and some things that's been said regarding feeding kids at school. What is our position on that? How have we addressed it within our budget?
We continue to offer the program, correct?
yes, that is paid for with the school lunch program fund, which is not part of this budget. All of this budget is just local 199 budget, not our federal funds.
Madam President.
Have we had a disruption in feeding kids this summer, Dr. Gropel?
Okay. That's what I want.
There you go. Okay. I know you're not asking that question. You're trying to get confirmation of what the local media.
Right.
Or others, maybe even Facebook, maybe portraying out there. But Dr. Gropel, we've had a successful summer feeding program. Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Newsom.
Yes, just a question on stipends, and probably for Mr. Jones as much as anyone. On page 51, mainly the teacher stipends, that we do for bilingual, math, science, those things, are we staying competitive with those as far as surrounding districts?
Yes, sir, we are definitely in the game with it as it pertains.
Okay. And
We may have some districts around us that may be getting ahead of us, but we are still competitive with that.
And if a teacher, I'll use coach for example, but if they had any other duty where they did not teach, they have to teach a certain number of sections to get the full stipend, is that correct? But if for whatever reason, if they're teaching 7 of 8 or 6 or 8, is that stipend prorated?
No, it's not, and that's only in one particular area. The other stipends are just, paid.
But we used to prorate them then?
Several years ago we did.
Okay. And why was that? Why did we, I guess the question is, one, why did we do that? And two, do other districts prorate? If we want to stay competitive with our surrounding districts, do they prorate their stipends?
That's a good question. I have no idea. We made that decision for budgetary. And also to make sure I can be fairly applied. Fairly applied engagement in the training system.
For example?
For example, with saying that someone is doing this but not having actual out. This was sure of to make sure that we were consistent and were above board as it pertains to the stipend.
So some were like getting the full stipend but not teaching the full class load?
Maybe.
So before, if you taught, what is the requirement? How many sections to get the full stipend?
I think it's 6 or 7 right now. 6, maybe.
6, 7,
6, 7?
as the kids say. I'm sorry.
6 of 8.
6 of 8.
6 of 8 and you get the full stipend?
Yes, sir.
Okay, but if you taught 3, you wouldn't get that prorated down?
That is correct.
And that was budgetary, so how much of a budgetary, and this may be for Ms. Russell, what would it take if we went back to prorating? How much did we save when we stopped doing that?
That's not a number that I have at the moment, but it'd be something
You
I
weren't
could-
here, so
Yeah.
Ron mentioned budget, so
Dr. Crawford told me long ago I would not be the CFO, so I would have to get with Casey on that to get you a number on that one.
yeah, I would be interested in that number and how much. I mean, I can't imagine it happen all that often, but I assume some of our coaches are math teachers and science teachers, maybe not. I mean,
That's one thing we've
yeah.
worked on. I mean, that
was part of
and
it.
coach is an easy one to pick up, but I'm sure that,
Yeah.
department chair or cheerleader sponsor or whatever, that would get an extra.
Intuitively, I would think if you're looking at this from a budgetary constraint, you would want to do the proration. The prorations would benefit you in the allocation of that money where it would be proportionate to what they're actually doing. So you got somebody who's doing 6 or 7, you give them the whole thing. You got somebody who's doing 3 or 7, you give them 3 of it. Am I following that or not?
I think you're right on that. Would make sense budgetary. What I have heard is that it is to incentivize those teachers that are really good in teaching these tested subjects to teach as many as they can so that we can have the most students benefiting from that instruction. And I know we have lots of great educators, but that's kind of, I think it was less budgetary and more getting those teachers to teach more sections rather than, 2 or 3.
Okay. Well, Mr. Jones said budgetary. That was
Well, he
the
said
word
that
I
was
heard
one
him
of-
say. But
yeah,
he's not
no.
CFO.
I think that's one, that could be one of the reasons, but I think it's both together. But I do see what you're saying with the
it
budgetary.
also allows for some competitive balance whenever you're looking for hard to find teachers.
Right.
I mean, we've had speakers speak many a times about that. We don't all love DOI certified teachers. We're not just in love with that. We would love to have fully certified teachers in our school system in front of every one of our kids.
Yeah.
It doesn't take much to look at how many people are leaving the profession and how much are being pumped out of higher ed and what we're stuck with. So whenever you start talking about stipends, somebody that's going to be certified, that is already fully certified, mathematics, science, I don't think we put a restriction on them, because I guarantee you that Troop and ARP and Bullard and Jacksonville and Lindale are not going to sit here and go, well, you're only going to teach 5 out of 8, so you're only going to get 5/8 of a stipend. So I think is that kind of where you're going on that?
I just want to make sure we're competitive.
Yeah, I agree.
With our,
Yeah, so-
and that, you
Yeah,
know, if we're recruiting, and give me just a second,
Yes.
we're recruiting science teachers and bilingual, and those are, you know, and freshman algebra, those are tough to fill spots.
Right.
And even sometimes, you can tell me if I'm wrong, it's been a long time since I was in education. You know, a campus may not have enough sections to fill 7 or 8. Maybe they only, you know, hire this person, well, we only got 4 sections of science, so you're gonna have to pick up 2 sections of study hall or whatever, right? And so I don't want to penalize that teacher because there's not enough sections to get them the stipend.
Correct.
So,
Am I clear in just kind of what my thought process
sir.
is? Okay.
so my understanding, I think, is the stipend is given if you're teaching, it doesn't matter how many courses you're teaching within that area, academic area, if it's a stipend associated with it, you get that stipend for that amount, right?
Yeah, not all stipends are prorated or need to
Right.
be bilingual, teaching bilingual, you get your bilingual stipend. It's
Right.
not going to be 6 of 8 or any of those things. So it's not all stipends that that applies to. And you mentioned coaching being a part of that. You know, I'm teaching 4 sections, and then I'm coaching. Coaching brings with it its own set of stipends for the work that they do.
Right.
So they're not missing anything there. And then we have SILT stipends. That was a part of it as well. At those that were teaching maybe 4 such sections of a math course, then had an off period, and then they were the SILT member of the department, and so there was a stipend associated with that as well. Campus instructional leadership team. So they were a part of that, basically your department chairs on your campus, and they had an off period there as well. So that comes with money attached to it as well, because if you're not before students, then that's a section there. And so all of those things went into the consideration when it came to prorating the stipends or not. Who was getting them, what the desired outcome was to get those with the expertise to teach more sections of that particular subject matter. So all of that went into that discussion.
Okay, but when y'all are budgeting, do y'all assume every science teacher is going to get the full stipend and then say, oh, well, now you're a department chair? I mean, are y'all budgeting in this budget? Is this budget assuming that everyone's going to get that stipend if they're a science or bilingual? Or
I budget for it. I don't know about.
We look at stipends kind of as a whole because there's so many different kinds of stipends, and budgeting them exactly would take an entire week probably. And so we more so look at it from a big picture, not down to the
At the
detail
end of
level.
last year, did you have money left over in the stipend budget? Did you use all of it, or was there a little, any left over?
No, that is why that we are increasing the budget for stipends this year based on actual activity in 24-25.
Okay.
We have negotiated at the high school level. I'll give you an anecdotal example of a teacher that was a sponsor of a fairly important organization on a campus, not receiving the full stipend. And when given that the opportunity, hey, you can either give up that sponsorship and teach that extra period or 2 to get the full stipend, or you have that one specific period for, I don't know, student council. It's up to you. Which one do you want? They chose the student council period.
Okay.
So we do go to individually go to those and look at those and not just say, thou shalt have the stipend. There are instances to where we've actually had to go back and do that, so.
Any more comments?
Casey, I've got a comment publicly since Mr. Loper is in the audience. Mr. Loper, 3 cents of our tax rate is dedicated towards preventative maintenance, correct? When did we come up with that plan? 2004? 1? In preparation for the 2004 year, because we started rolling into these building programs, correct? bond, right? And then we added a couple of pennies. Yep. Y'all, it's, that was done in 2001, excuse me, right, correct? It's been, let's just call it a nice even number, a quarter of a century since we did that. The dollar is not the same now as it was then. So I want to make sure that we're putting that, I'm not trying to say anything other than we're making this very aware and very public that that is a quarter of a century policy that we've had here, and it's a little tough. Now, you're going to ask me, Marty, should we add some more pennies? I'm going to tell you no, because we did not get a basic allotment increase from the state this year. Everything that we got was pretty much attached to raises, correct?
99.9%.
There you go. So it is something that we're going to have to contend with, not this year, not next year, but in the next 3 to 4 to 5 years that we will have to contend with in regard to looking at that preventative maintenance fund. And maybe there'll be some better legislation come down that does allow some flexibility at the board level for things on your M&O side, i.e. from the basic allotment. So a little school finance lesson right there that we're going to have to contend with. We're not in any bad shape right now. I don't predict to be in any bad shape, but knowing that that's been a quarter of a century since we adopted those 3 pennies, we're going to have to do some work on that.
Tim, didn't we also have a bond? Was the 98 bond, did that go to like HVAC, and weren't there some paving, and it seemed like there was stuff in there that really should have been maintenance, but we had to force it off on a bond.
Basically, that was the 1998 bond.
Yeah.
And it was all HVAC, it was electrical upgrades, and it was roofs.
Yeah.
That had been deferred.
Bathrooms too, like the outside the Moore gym and the Stewart gym and the Bolter, those bathrooms for athletic facilities or something as well?
They were the entire school roofs, re-roofing them.
Okay, I thought there was those bathrooms were added.
There was at the middle school, you're right.
Okay.
And I remember them asking me why they cost so much, but that was prior to me. They were $165,000 a piece then.
Okay.
They're a lot more now.
But y'all had Mr. Bergfeld's question, that was a pretty big maintenance bond?
It was basically all maintenance. It wasn't, you couldn't stand at the curb and see what we had done.
Yeah.
It was basically
We
infrastructure.
just didn't want to be in that position again, you know.
No doubt.
I mean, that wasn't the way you run your. Yeah.
Yeah, I can remember that back in that time too, and that's why our schools was in such bad shape, unfortunately, because we didn't have a maintenance fund.
Yep.
We had to go to the public to get anything improved, and that didn't make sense. So the 1 cent was definitely a good start, and I think the 3 cents is great. But I agree with you once again. It's been 25 years, and maintenance has increased considerably.
Yeah.
So we are going to have to evaluate that and see if it's effective or not, and make a decision regarding it.
Yep.
Y'all finished? Thank you. Do we vote on it?
No, that's just the proposal.
Okay. We need to talk about the approval of compensation structure. Anybody? B?
Yeah, we can just approve B through
So let's approve
right? Or A through.
A through E. Do we need to discuss any of those? He had a,
I'm sorry, Madam President. That was just a presentation on the business, legal, finance consent agenda. I'd like to pull items number A and number B.
All right, well, then I move we approve items C, D, and E.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposing? C, D, and E has been approved. Okay, A.
On the same theme, I wanted to dig down a little bit, not too long. I don't want to go too long on this, specifically on the 2 things. One was I just want to make sure that this is explained to me again like I'm a 3rd grader, because I don't get it. Before we spoke about certified versus non-certified teachers, I got you. The state is now telling us that for a newbie, for a new teacher, we can differentiate $1,500, right? but
We're required to.
we're required to differentiate between certified and non-certified teachers. But explain to me, how does that go away by year number 5? Well, actually, you said it goes away by year number 2. So you start off one teacher at 50,500, and then the certified one gets 52,000. So the next year, the uncertified one gets a pretty big bump, right?
Right. If this were to stay the same next year. So the reason we're adopting it this way is because the difference in pay for a beginning teacher for non-certified teachers, that requirement starts next year. So if we were to raise that floor this year, we would be stuck then at a higher floor and have to raise every single step again then. So if we do this year, we are just doing the required, and we can evaluate from there with all the other things coming out of the legislature that may change with the special session. So we're basically not getting ourselves into something before we have more information. So this is just for this year. Yes.
So this is coming out of House Bill 2, I guess, to be in compliance with that.
Yes.
And I guess this was more of a macro question for the soup. So we're assuming that at some point, in year number 2, I guess they're phased out completely as far as what you can pay them. Do we have any data that tells us, okay, we take an uncertified teacher, by this year we expect them to be certified. By this year they're certified just like the rest of them. Do we have any of that data, Soup? Any programs, data?
Well, we try to have, again, I think we've had this discussion before, 3 years. Getting married to somebody, and that's part of our DOI plan too, was we had proposed 3 years of probe when you came into Tyler ISD, whether you were a tenured teacher or not. We compromised and I think got it down to 2, correct, Mr. Jones? That is something that doesn't have any numbers attached to it financially, right? That is correct. Okay, 2 years. So we try to not get married to someone after that second year if we don't think that they're going to be able to do it. Now, there are exceptions to where we might give someone a third year of probe. We handle this, we do the DOIs the same way. We want them to get certified by their third year. If they're not, they're typically not with us much longer, unless, there's a caveat, unless they're performing. And we've got some, I think, that have actually scored on TIA. And you want us to run off someone who's growing kids just because they hadn't gotten certified yet? There's a balance there. Yeah, in 5 years, we're going to have to do something if the legislature doesn't have a better idea, or if higher ed's not pumping out more certified teachers. So by the third year, we want them certified. If not, they're gone.
So I guess what I'm asking for is not necessarily that. You've told me that. I think you've told me that repetitively. I want a number, and you don't have it today.
No, I don't have it today.
I want a number. I want to know we've got 100 uncertified teachers, and out of those 100, by year number 2, 50 were certified. 32 left. 22 are still with us, and they're doing great, and they're 80%. That's what I would like to see.
So,
is the
Ms.
actual-
Taylor, when do you have your report? When do we give that? November, okay. And we can probably get you something before that.
Okay.
But we'll include that in the November report too, because you'll see the strata on there on the folks that we are DOIing and where they're at in their program, or if they're out of state, or if they're waiting on just to take the certification test. They've completed all the coursework and things like that as well. So we can add that in there as well.
Yeah, no, that's kind of what I'm wanting, because we've got the legislature supposedly is going to come and tell us at some point, hey, you've got to get to a certain percentage by this year. So I'd like to get ahead of that. I'd like to say this is where we are, get a baseline, and then try to get ahead of that. So that's one thing on that. And then the only other thing I had that I wanted to pull this was, I wanted to look at the stipends, and the stipend. This kind of goes back to the prior agenda item, but it is part of this one because it actually lists the stipends themselves. And I want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. Again, I'm new to the board, but not new to a board. If I'm looking at the stipend list for 25 through 26, it starts off with the extracurriculars. So let's go in there and look at one and say, okay, so cheerleading sponsor varsity, that person gets, or persons, gets a $4,500 stipend. And that's a yearly stipend?
Yes.
Okay. And then we keep going on, you go into the fine art stipends, and then you go into the bilingual stipends and got some special ed stuff. And I see some of these on the semi-annual, they're getting that twice a year, I'm assuming. So the 250, like campus translator, we get a $250 twice a year?
Yes.
I guess from a board level type of observation, and correct me if I'm wrong, looks like our big stipends are in extracurriculars. Band director, drill team instructor, orchestra director, not in math. Are those harder to find jobs, Soup, or is there a reasoning there on why we have bigger stipends in those areas?
I mean, I think every school district has to look at what you want to provide stipends for. And yes, they are hard to find at times. So you want to be competitive in things that you're offering that kids are associated with, and yes, sir, those are some things that we do provide stipends for.
I would also say a lot of those that you're describing work very odd hours outside of the normal teacher day. I mean, they're having to travel on buses and don't get back home till late, sometimes 2, 3 in the morning. And so I think they do a lot of outside stuff that, a regular teacher doesn't do. So.
Sure.
Yes, I'll add to that. All of these stipends for extracurricular don't get paid to hourly staff, and so these are professionals that get paid their regular salary. So when they do get back at midnight, they aren't getting anything extra other than this stipend.
Isn't that just part of their salary? You sign up for high school choir director or head football coach, you know what's involved in that.
That's a little different. Head football coach is more like an administrator.
Right, but.
You're talking about an assistant coach.
You sign up for the job, this is the job, you know there's gonna be late hours and all that, whereas, when I taught, and coaching was extra, so the stipend was for those late nights.
Correct.
In addition to my teaching, but on some of these, and some of them I understand it is because of extra stuff, but, high school choir director, that's just a job, why is it, I guess why didn't we just pay them an extra $6,000?
I have an answer for that.
Okay.
So choir directors are going to be part of, House Bill 2 was very specific on who got the raises. It was people that are in front of kids for more than 50% of the day. So a math teacher and a choir teacher would both qualify for that. And so we have to put those teachers on the same pay grade in order to apply these legislative changes to their salaries appropriately. And so anytime they're doing something outside of the school day, we do that through stipends. So in theory, it would be great if we could do that to the salary, but then we would have to adopt probably 100 different types of for pay.
So,
That makes sense, thank you.
I get that. Again, my concern, not question, concern, whatever you want to label it, is we have certain core beliefs as Tyler ISD. We have certain things that we say we're about successful student outcomes. But when a constituent asks me, why do you pay a $4,500 bonus stipend to your drill team instructor, but you're only paying your math or doctorate degreed person $1,500 or $4,000. How do I justify that? How do I explain that? I think that that's a fair question to say if we really value education, our main job is to educate kids, then our money, our paychecks, our budget, we can talk about values all we want. Just show me your budget. We're incentivizing people in areas, in my opinion, that we should not be. And I would submit to you that it is very hard to find math teachers, certified math teachers. And so I would like, from a board perspective, to look at that. What do we really value there? Is it extracurriculars? I'm fine with people who like football and stuff. I do too. But I'd rather have a good math teacher.
I think on your stipends, that is part of the school experience, the student experience, the East Texas way, that's evaporating before us. So y'all can give me some direction on that. I would be more than happy to take that direction, and serving at your pleasure, I can come up with a plan for that. But at the same time, I also know what this community wants for its students, and it wants it to be involved in extracurricular activities. Well, at least that's my understanding. If that's changed, I need to know, and I can devise something different. Mr. Jones?
Just wanted to point out that your chair sponsor, unless they are teaching in a core area of 6 of 8 or whatever the case may be, they are not eligible for a teacher incentive allotment. And we have opened up that door for a lot more of our classroom teachers.
So they're making a lot less than what our core curriculum teachers can make because they do have that allotment.
Absolutely, and like you said earlier, that those people that do cheer, drill, the amount of time that they spend in the summer, throughout the week, and just putting up with the stuff is worth every penny that they receive for that. And that is a part of successful student outcomes, if you ask me, that we give those young people an opportunity to be a part of that particular organization and then have them out there to go and compete. And so that we are competitive in our region, whomever it is that we're competing against. So that's a part of it. It all goes together.
And are you still over cheerleading, Mr. Jones? Is
I am indeed, yes, sir.
Yeah.
You know, I think also we hired Marty, and one of the things we told him to do was we want to be great at everything. We don't pit one against the other. If you need more in a certain area, then let's figure out how to get more without taking away from some other program. So we'll lose students. We got to be great at everything we do, okay? So I'm open to suggestions on helping areas that are lacking right now, but not at the expense of other programs that we're doing well.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Trustee Burkeville. I have no intent of reducing those other ones. What I'm saying is we've complained year after year after year since I was on the board 12 years ago that we can't recruit bilingual employees. Not only can't we not recruit them, we can't grow our own, we can't hold on to them, and it makes us deficient in those subpopulations that we want to be proficient in. But we're paying them lower stipends than we do the other ones. A bilingual stipend is lower. So I'm not pinning one against the other. It's a measure of where they are. That's all it is. We're paying this one more than the other one when we're complaining that the other one is harder to recruit, retain, or grow. And so to me, naturally, intuitively, I would say, pay them more. Let's pay them more. Let's get that up, not taking from the other ones. Not saying that football or cheerleading or band or any of that is less important. I understand how that affects the kiddo in the classroom. If you have a child that's involved in athletics or any extracurricular, they are going to be a better child in that school because they have a reason to be involved. They got to pass number one to do it. So I'm with you. I'm not proposing that. What I'm proposing is that we realign our thinking a little bit and saying, do we really have a problem recruiting bilingual math, science, whatever teachers those are? Yes, okay. Let's pay them more on the stipend side. Let's really put that in our budget and in our checkbook. Let's show them that this is what we're serious about.
Okay. I'm enjoying the discussion. I think that we need to have a comprehensive workshop on how we're compensating our individuals, including stipends and incentives. I think that the incentive program that we have, we are helping our teachers, the classroom teachers, significantly if they are successful. Stipends is a different category, but I think it all goes hand in hand. I think we need to have a complete understanding of how everything works together to make up that particular salary. And I think that's where the misunderstanding may be in some concepts. Personally, I'm concerned about reading and math, because we've done horrible at some grade levels, and I can see stipends for that. We have incentive programs, but, we need to get those things up as well. So I think we need to have a comprehensive discussion regarding stipends and incentives and see what we can do to be creative to enhance those successful outcomes that we want.
But
Okay?
all of those core teachers usually make more than a lot of these people on this stipend list.
Right.
That's the point of the stipend, is to at least give them something. So, I mean, I don't know, so why would we give them a stipend when they're already making a really good salary for their 7:30 to 4 job? when
'Cause we're
these
looking
people
for
are
more of
doing-
them.
Well, I said,
Way
that's
outside of
why I think
I'm
we
not
need to have.
comparing overall salaries. I'm not, Lindsay, I understand what you're saying. You're saying a sponsor for this athletic deal makes considerably less than a math teacher, and we're paying a math teacher a stipend, and we're trying to stipend the other person. I get you. I understand one's making more than the other. You guys know as well as I do, we go to all these trainings, and there are a few levers that the board members have. There's a few levers. One of them is the budget. One of them is the budget. That's a big lever that we have as a school board. And if we are about successful student outcomes, I'd like to define that, but I think we ought to start putting our money where our mouth is on this and saying, let's look at it. I'm not saying throw out the old pay scale and bring in a whole new one. I'm not saying this one is flawed. I'm saying when I go out to my constituents and talk to some of your constituents, I'm sure they'd be willing to share it. And I tell them, hey, you know, we pay a diagnostician that's bilingual $2,000 more as a stipend. I said, that's great. You pay your band director $8,000 more as a stipend. Where are your values? We're an education municipality. Extracurricular is just that, extra.
I think if you really saw it on paper, though, even though it says an $8,000 stipend, that bilingual teacher, I mean, I think it looks like they're just making so much more, and I don't really think that's the case.
Yeah, that's not my interpretation of this.
Kinda have to
Probably
look at
the
it as a whole.
Yeah, probably the varsity cheerleader deal. She may make 50 or he may make 50, and the bilingual one makes 70. I got you. I get you. But we're trying to get more math teachers, more bilingual teachers, more science teachers. That's what I'm saying. We want to get more of those. So you got to incentivize it some way. We can't do it on the payroll side. I mean, on the salary side, we've talked about that, but maybe this is an incentive place. I don't know, but I sure would like to have a robust, detailed conversation with the administration, maybe getting us the data on it. And if I'm missing the spot here, tell me.
Madam President.
Go ahead.
Mr. Jones, how are we doing on recruiting this year? How are we looking as far as the next school year? Are we full up, still openings? I mean, are we filling our spots that we need to?
We had our paraprofessional job fair today, had a great turnout there. PG, outside of a few special ed positions. We're down to about 13 special ed openings right now, and we had the paraprofessional job fair today, great turnout. And I heard the Hubbard crew that was there saying that their Wednesday is full of interviews to fill the remaining vacancies there. So I think we will be where we've been for the last couple of years at 100% staffed by the time we roll around 8/13.
Good work.
Anybody else?
One last thing, and I'm gonna beat this until I'm done. And I mean when I'm retired. Supply. We're talking about demand. Y'all, we are at a crisis, and I know we're gonna go after grow your own. That's great. That's gonna take a while to get there. There has been some neglect on the supply end of this thing. And I don't want us to get away from the board dais without everybody shaking their head and saying that is true. And Tyler ISD has had nothing to do with the supply issue. Nothing. It is a state of Texas thing. It's higher ed's gone all to the diploma mill for graduate degrees. Teacher production is what I'm trying to emphasize here, and I'm going to defend that. And I'm not going to make it as an excuse. We need to do things to be as attractive as we can with whatever supply is available. But as we're heading towards this in 5 years of saying no more DOI, I'm going to ask this question. I'm going to pose this as rhetorical. Do y'all want 40 to 50 to 60 substitute teaching spots in the district and not a degreed person in those classrooms?
No.
I've already been there in this district. I've seen that. So we've all got to figure out a way to get around this and compete, and we will do so, Mr. Lisea. Okay?
Thank you, Soup.
A great discussion. We all know teachers are underpaid. We all know that. And I worked for 38 years. I never got ESL stipend. I taught ESL. Special ed, never got a special ed stipend. Reading, never got a reading stipend. And so it's challenging. And we need to do what we can do. And we might have to look into rehire if we run short of teachers. So the gate is open.
It's open. It is open. And Mr. Jones, all those retired teachers that you've got in your trunk, unleash them. Let them out. Let them out.
I might be on that.
No, the legislature did the right thing and actually allowed us to be able to negotiate those penalties on paying back. Because when you get out of TRS, when you retire and you get out of TRS, that is something they want you to have to pay into. And so districts have been required to front all of that. That has been an issue. And now it's negotiable. So that is something that will be coming for y'all to contemplate. So I'm excited about that. Ms. Atkins, you cannot teach if you're on the school board.
Okay.
Can't teach here.
Right. Anyway, I move the nomination for approving A and B.
I move we approve A and B.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposing? Okay, let's move on. Do you want to pull anything from A through P?
No, I'm done pulling stuff.
The curriculum instruction consent agenda, anybody want to pull anything?
I move we approve items A through P.
Second.
All in favor? Anybody opposed? A through P has been approved. Moved and approved. Let's go to superintendent's staff report.
Yes. A few legislative sessions ago, someone thought that the cooperative purchasing program in the state, these buy boards and region service centers that allow competitive bidding, state competitive bidding, were making millions and gazillions of dollars. And so they put in law that each board has to get a report about cooperative purchasing fees. And on page 89 of your packet, if you're interested in those, are those gazillions and trillions of dollars that allow us to, that are already competitively bid, state competitively bid for resources and products. Now, what the public may not know is that y'all actually have a policy threshold of $100,000. $100,000 purchase needs to come in front of the board. Over that needs to come in front of the board for purchasing. Anything under that, we can actually buy off of these. One strategy would be to actually buy through a competitive purchasing program. So on page, I said 89, is it blank?
No?
Oh, that's the wrong page. Okay, there you go. So there are your various fees. In fact, we have some partnerships and arrangements that don't even charge us those fees. So there's the list of those fees. I'm not going to read them to you, but there they are. Down there on the various fees, Central Texas Purchasing Alliance is a $150 annual fee. Region 7 Service Center is a $5,400 fee. There's Buy Board from TASB, Evil TASB, $800 for purchase of buses to the use of the Buy Board contracts, and the Texas Comptroller of Public Accounts. So the comptroller, he actually charges you a fee as well. He or she does. So there's $100 right there. So there's the list of the fees. There's the superintendent's report. Y'all are compliant with receiving that.
That's a great report.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Didn't do a PowerPoint.
FYI, you know who pays the fees. It's the people that's selling.
The people that are selling it, that's right. Yep.
Charge.
You should know that, Mr. Leverett.
Charge more when there's a co-op on it.
There you go.
Okay, discussion, local policy FNCE, first reading. Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, coming up to the microphone now, we've got Director of the Superintendent's Office of Constituent Services, the longest title in the district, and that's Mr. John Johnson, along with Deputy Superintendent Chief of Staff, Mr. Ron Jones. They're up here because they have discipline and the student code of conduct in their sphere of responsibilities. Gentlemen, you may present.
President Atkins, trustees, Dr. Crawford, It is my pleasure to bring you this brief overview of many of the changes that are a part of the Student Code of Conduct for this upcoming school year. And you have the full document before you for the first reading, and we're just going to go over a few of the highlights. I'm going to turn the mic over to the good Deacon Dr. Reverend John Johnson here. Let him get us started, and I'll chime in as needed.
Okay. Good evening, Board of Trustees, Madam President, Dr. Crawford. Protocol having already been established, we are here to discuss. Don't be messing with me because I'm in the church. I could, but we are here to discuss Student Code of Conduct. And as you know, we were waiting up until last week to get these updates. And so they came in and we jumped right on it, of course. There are extensive changes, but a few of them, as you know of, such as cell phones and some of the other pieces have gotten a little more attention than others. But just overall, we've broken it down by House bills. I do want to caution you that because of the added text and moving of some of the pieces that were sent to us, the page numbers will not line up right now. But as some of you know, with the history of it, we'll have that all out and taken out by the time you do your second reading for approval. But I just wanted to mention that again for those who are not aware of that. But anyway, with the overview and overall purpose of this House bill, we wanted to start and show you here that it clarifies suspension lengths, clearly defines the allowable duration of suspension to avoid. I will get on into those other pieces as we get through our additional changes and other miscellaneous updates that we're going to have. But also we have the removal of the mandatory DAP placement for e-cigarettes. However, students that are found in possession are still attempting to sell tobacco products or do that, those placements will remain mandatory. You'll also see that in there they have added wording to allow for 10-day ISS placements, which, like I said, I will get to the ISS portion shortly. But basically, at this point, before we won't move on right now, but with the House Bill 6, I'll just give you a quick overview of those pieces. House Bill 6 says that alternative assignment, which deals with the actual alternative placement with sufficient documentation, can be used in extenuating circumstances, not used as a routine. For example, out-of-school suspension, which we already have implemented with 3-day limits. That's staying the same, but in terms of ISS now is limitless. The only ruling is that you have to have a 10-day review for academic and behavioral progress. Also, Walsh-Anderson also advises that we still make sure that we're adhering to special education 504 rules and law and art committee decisions. So that is a piece that is built in. And in our current structure, it's still good to point out that as in previous years, we are ahead of the game in some aspects. And because we've been doing other steps, it makes some of these changes not as significant as they would be to a district who was not proactive towards discipline, towards instruction and intervention at the same time. We've got the parental involvement statement that was chosen regarding adopting policy for parental involvement. We have stayed with our disciplinary process with placements that outline the parents' participation all the way from the disciplinary conferences that happen when there is a proposed DAP placement. And then it moves on into the parents' ability to file an appeal if they do not agree with that placement and to be heard and go through that process. I'm sorry. I'm almost ready for that next one. I just have one other thing here. Like we said, first time offense here under House Bill 6 with the nicotine delivery. Like I said, they can still go to DAP, but however, we will attempt that at the first time, And we're talking about not the ones that have THC, we're talking about regular tobacco product. And so we will be attempting to use the 10-day ISS with those placements. Also, before we move on to the next slide, harassment of school employees and volunteers. The change from House Bill 6 now makes this offense a mandatory placement. Assault against a school employee or volunteer, revisions have been made because HB 6 removed the mandatory expulsion requirement for retaliation against school employees and volunteers, because it is found that mostly regardless of any motivation, it will still be found as a mandatory expulsion once it gets to that point. So it was just a change in terminology. Now we can go ahead and move. This next one right here is very quick with Senate Bill 1569. The short barrel firearm, basically Senate Bill 1569 just removed it as a wording piece, and so it has been added as the mandatory expulsion piece in there. We don't know why, but that was the instruction. So
you chose to present on it tonight, so.
Yes, sir.
I'm just saying.
Oh, well, we did. We presented on it because it was actually listed as a change we had to make. Okay. So we made it, and so we're in compliance, but we listed it under the mandatory expulsion.
With school discipline and firearm.
Yeah.
Through, we don't like that stuff.
Yeah, so we didn't play with it, but we did want to make sure, let everybody know that we're in compliance, and we did add it under mandatory expulsion, which it would have hit that way anyway. Here's the most exciting piece that I think everybody has been going on to House Bill 1481, which deals with the personal communication devices. And I'll let you go again.
Just want to say the language that we are looking at is included in the packet on page 92. That's the cell phone policy, the language there.
Okay. And we have that basically showing that with technology, it is from bail to bail. Opening bail of the school day, device should be secured, put away in backpack, and then not dealt with again until after the final bail. First offense is a technology violation. Device will be confiscated and held. Parent pickup is required. Once again, that will start with $5, not a fee, but an assessment. Second offense would be insubordination, and once again, device would be held with a $10 assessment. Third offense would once again be insubordination, moving to $15, and however, fourth and consecutive offenses could result in more severe disciplinary consequences, as well as a device ban in general. But there is a cap of $15 on the fee portion. And so we would use the ISS and other things that the Student Code of Conduct affords us if there's extreme non-compliance past that point. Yeah, and then we have the exceptions listed, certainly for those students who 504 and special ed, and they have certain technology use, such as apps and things that are ordered into their and added to their IEPs. Yeah. And then you can go to the.
Is this the time we talk about?
No, let's save that for.
Okay.
Let's get through this, and then let's go back and
So
talk about the actual cell phone policy, if y'all don't mind. Thank you.
Yes, and so the final piece we have is the Senate Bill 326, which deals with anti-Semitism, which requires the district to use the definition of anti-Semitism provided by the government code, section 448001, and then it gives us those examples that are referenced with behavior that is indicative of hatred of Jews through physical and rhetorical acts as well.
Thank you.
Okay, all right.
Are there any questions?
This is a first reading of the Student Code of Conduct, correct?
That is correct.
And so this will have to actually come back in front of the board, just like we do every year, for a second reading and actual adoption for this 25-26 school year. Y'all were given some of the bigger highlights, but the biggest one is obviously the cell phone bill that we'll talk about here in just a minute. Any questions for these two gentlemen?
So you said at the closing bell, so if school's out at 3:45, the phones could come out as soon as the bell rings at 3:45 or 4 o'clock, or
As they are getting on the bus, yes.
maybe not.
All right, we're going to transition over into the actual cell phone portion of this. Do y'all need to stay up there or no?
They might need to.
Yeah, why not?
We don't mind.
Thank you, sir.
Dang it, I've talked more today than I have.
You're the chief of staff. All right, let's go ahead and get started on this. First of all, a little bit of a mea culpa on this. We did release this out before it got to y'all. We did, under my direction, I did tell them that we needed to get something out to parents because we felt like the sooner the better on this. And there's some school districts that aren't going to be able to get this out to their people until right before school starts. At least it's out there in the public. My apologies for getting that out there before y'all ever had a chance to discuss it. But here we are talking about this. I'll just go ahead and introduce some of this. I do have concerns about it. It's going to take a pretty big mind shift from parents, from educators, and from students to get away from these little devices in our hands. There are some intricacies on this thing because of the way that the law was written that's going to cause some difficulties in implementation of this when you talk about certain times when you do need to communicate with students during the day that we've become accustomed to. And lastly, before we actually get into the meat and bones of this thing, if you're an administrator in 2002 or 2001 or at the turn of the last of this century, raise your hand. Did you ever fight a parent physically because of a cell phone or almost get assaulted from one?
I did a lot of running.
Yeah. Same thing with a student. Even back then, it's been 25 years almost. And so the way that the law is built, the way that the law is designed, while it has great intentions, and it is an issue that we need to contend with and deal with and improve, especially for the learning outcomes, it is going to cause your middle management administrators on your campuses, your assistant principals and your principals, some degree of difficulty that has not been there. And I'll just say this, there are some districts that I've talked to their superintendents, they're going to practice some civil disobedience on this. And I don't encourage that, but at the same time, the way that the law is written and what y'all are about to discuss, I don't know how much flexibility you're actually going to have in there, to be honest with you. The other thing that I will say before you get into this discussion, we don't want kids to have to spend any more time in-school suspension or out-of-school suspension or DAP over stinking cell phones than needed. That is your alternative. There's not a whole lot of alternatives on this, and so if we put a number on this thing, and we just talked about it, and that's what y'all are probably going to talk about, I don't know what else you can do besides that. Because we do need a lot of help from the parents on this. There's a lot of parental engagement on this about them retrieving the cell phone back. I do think that was different than that in the early 2000s. We could actually hand the phone back to the kid right then after that assessment had been procured. But that's not what we're going to ask for. We're going to ask for parental involvement on this, and I do think that's a good start. So the policy is in front of you for your discussion. It's FNCE local, and we can have that discussion.
I'll get it started. I'm with you. I support the theory of what we're trying to do here. I do think it's interesting. We went from encouraging kids to have phones to be able to do the coursework to now we're trying to take them away from them. My own kids, I can tell you now that they're gone, are totally distracted by their phones, even with two parents trying to do the best they can to redirect them or to challenge them in other ways. And so my concern is, you mentioned it, how do we not bog down our classrooms, our administrators, to where this is all they're worrying about or trying to do is control cell phones? Because these kids they're all addicted. I mean, all of them that I know pretty much. So, that's tough. It is, but I appreciate y'all putting this together. I think it's something that needs to be addressed, but it may be a process. I think it's going to be, there's no other way about it. You're not going to be able to wean these kids off these phones in a real quick manner. And, you know, I appreciate y'all. This is going to be a challenge. It really is. But, yeah.
Madam President. And, you know, along those lines, I know as it's set up right now where they can have them in their backpacks but off, that I really think that's probably the best option. I mean, we could take them at the door and put them in those lock bags. What are those called, yonders, or? Is that what?
I just call them pouches. I don't
Pouches.
know what the official
There's a few vendors.
Yeah, a few different vendors. You know, and you lock it up and you can't open that till you leave. I think y'all went with the least kind of restrictive policy that you can, but I agree at high school. Not only the administrators, the teachers, you got plenty of stuff to deal with if it's, you know, as a former high school teacher, if it was me, you know, you're teaching young adults, and you either listen to me or do it, you know, as long as you weren't disturbing anyone else. I wasn't the greatest teacher, I could hold my own, but, you know, if you wanted to sleep in class, then that's fine, just don't snore and bother anybody else. But same thing with the cell phone, but, you know, what teachers, you can only fight so many battles as a teacher, and some of them fight battles better than others. And maybe with the ease in the rules on vaping, they can use that free time to deal with cell phones now with not having to send kids to DAP, write that paperwork. And so we'll have that. Just comment on the fines. I would like y'all to look into that. With the changes in the law, they removed, as I understood, and legal, you can correct me if I'm wrong, they withdrew that language that had the fee. So we're talking about pennies, you know, what 3 pennies was like in 2005 or 98, whenever they start that, is $5. $5 is different too. They took that language out. Does that mean we can charge any fee? Or do we need to keep it under $15? Or, you know, if we're trying to change behavior, do we need to look it up in those fees, or can we even charge them?
It doesn't say you can't. There's not a thou shalt. And that's why we get to this point in the legislature where you get bills that are written that don't have the depth that's needed to give us the guidance. Sometimes there's rulemaking that needs to come out. So it doesn't say you can't. They did strike that at one time. There's red strike through red lettering in there. I don't know what the intentions were, that they could start out that way, or if they were trying to put it in there to say that you couldn't. But it's not in there right now. And I think whenever we talked about this as an administration is that some districts, I'll let off with this, some districts are going just with the in-school suspension, out-of-school suspension, DAEP penalty piece of this. Yeah. Ours is kind of more or less, let's get back in the classroom. And so that's kind of where we landed on this. Unless we want to drag, we're going to drag the parent up there every time that it happens anyways. And that's going to be fun.
Has the agency released their
no.
model policy?
No, everybody's swamped right now, and including them on trying to get information out for this upcoming year and accountability release and all that stuff that's going on. So I'm sure over time there's going to wind up being some rulemaking. I mean, you saw one thing about the limitations on in-school suspension. When Mr. Jones and I were in Dallas ISD, that was a locally derived policy. You could be up there for 3 weeks, 21 days?
Yeah, it was 21 days.
21 days. And then all of a sudden, 3 years ago, you couldn't be in there for more than just an arbitrary rule made from the agency, cut that down almost in half, correct?
That's correct.
So I think that you're going to wind up getting some of this stuff's going to wind up being fleshed out as we go along, and this will be one of them.
Yeah. Madam President, a couple things on it, and I echo some of the concerns and comments that Trustee Bergfeld made. I'm a no for whatever that's worth on the amounts. I think we're going to create a difference in the ones that can pay it and move on, just like a fine. Some people can get pulled over by the cops and pay the fine, and it doesn't mess with their day. Some people cry all day because it ruined their day. And I hope we can go to a less restrictive thing. I'm not saying totally get rid of it. Maybe the first offense, there is no fine. Maybe it's, let's talk about this. We'll give it back to you at the end of the day. Maybe the second offense, there is a fine. But we're going to create a class of people who can pay. Daddy's going to say, here's a checkbook, pay as many fines as you want, and we'll get your cell phone back. So that's one thing. One comment I would say is let's try to be a little flexible there, try to be as least restrictive as possible, because this is already out there. The way this was rolled out there, now we're having to come back in and change what we've already rolled out. That's going to be even further confusing, is we've already put this out there. It's not approved, but now we got to go in and educate people. It's, hey, that's not the final policy. This is the final policy. And I think it gives us an opportunity to tweak it some. So that's one thing. Also, one question I had was, this is only going to be released to a parent or a legal guardian. A lot of the times they're going to pick them up when they come get the kid from school, I would imagine, from a logistical purpose, right? Whoever picks up the kid is going to go in and get the cell phone. Well, that person may not be the legal guardian, but they're probably the person on the list of people that can pick up the child, right? So if there's some room there to say, okay, legal guardian, mom or dad, or any person listed on their list of approved people to come pick them up, I think we might do that on a cell phone. Obviously, if I'm on somebody's list, I come pick up my goddaughter, Camilla, and I get her cell phone for her. Let's say I'm not a trustee. I don't want to do that as a trustee. I'm not going to be released records on Camilla. I'm not on her HIPAA or her student form. So that's another area I want to talk about it. That I've read through the actual law that's putting this in place, and Soup is right. There's nothing in there that prohibits us from charging or not charging. So I guess it goes back to home rule stuff. We can if we want to, but again, that's going to create two different classes of people that can afford and not afford. And it's also going to, if we don't use that option, if we do not give them a chance to pay the nominal fee, $1, $5, whatever that is, we're going to have in my opinion, a rise in DAEP placements or ISS placements, or they're going to be missing instructional time over a cell phone. And so we've got to flesh that out a little bit before we do that. I wish we'd have had a little further ahead of it, because now we're having to fix this and go back to the public with it. But those are my initial thoughts.
Madam Chair, in regards to the policy, I think it's well-written. I do love the parental involvement. I think that that's the only way we're going to make a difference in that home with the cell phones, is having the parents come and be involved in picking it up. I like that component. As far as the cost, the fine associated with it, it's not a whole lot. I think we spend money on what we want to, and I think that they bought the cell phone, so they pay the fee if they want them to keep having it. So I don't have a problem with the fee associated with it. I think that the biggest thing is making an impact with the parents, that it's their responsibility to talk to their child about the use of the cell phone during school hours. And I think that that's the essential point that we're trying to make. I think that's probably the point that the state was possibly trying to make when they imposed this on us. But that's going to be the thing that make the difference. The fee, I don't think is going to be a big issue. I really don't. I think that they will if they want it. And so I support the policy. We have to implement something, and I support what we have.
Go ahead. No. I am really excited about this. I've talked about this for a long time. I do understand the challenge that this is going to bring to all the admin and the teachers. And I just encourage everybody to stick with it and just push through, because I think after a couple months, the kids are going to get used to it. We're not the only state that has done this. And if you go look at other states that have done this and you read their data and you see what these kids are publicly saying about how nice it is that they don't have their phones, it really truly brings it back to the core of what we're about, is our education and trying to get an education from these kids instead of keeping up our snap streak, TikToking with the teachers in the classroom. I mean, it is, he will be a junior in high school and he is about to murder me for saying all this, but I literally want to throw them in the trash. And I wish he wouldn't even take it and put it in his backpack. But I really, truly just encourage the teachers and the admin just to stick with it and just, you know.
It's classic.
One in case.
Golly.
It's time to put the trash out.
Anyways, I really do think the outcome of this is going to outweigh the challenge that it's going to bring in the very beginning. And I know it's going to be hard and parents are going to get upset. And with the fines and everything, y'all work with these children all the time. Y'all deal with parents. I trust y'all on what y'all think is best. But I'm actually excited for what this could possibly bring for our kids.
And it's not going to be perfect.
No.
No matter what you tweak or change or whatever, it's not going to be perfect. We all know that. And so I agree. I support it in that we need to do something. Let's just dig in and see how it works. And, you know, we'll learn to adjust as we all go. But nobody knows what the reaction's going to be.
Madam President?
Yes.
I would also like to say one thing. When I looked at this initially, and I agree totally with what Lindsay's saying, and I still say the fee thing I'm not on board with, but I looked through the employee handbook. Okay, we're expecting certain things of children, right? We're expecting them to put the phones away, okay? I looked through the employee handbook. This one little paragraph, unless I'm missing something, this one little paragraph addresses what employees should do with cellular telephone use. It's literally 5 sentences. But we got 3 pages telling our kiddos what to do with those. I think we need to lead by example on some of this. You know, I have no problem when executives come up here and they're presenting and we're talking and they're on their cell phone or they're on their computer. Doesn't bother me one bit. They're working on something. When they're up here talking to us, they're totally tuned into us. But if we're going to expect this from our children, we need to model that behavior in the classroom, whether it be the instructor up front or the principal or the administrator. We need to model that behavior because the feedback I'm getting, besides the fact that this is already out there and I had limited information on it, is, well, the teachers up front doing the same thing. The teachers up front scrolling through whatever. So that's a different discussion maybe, but it's something that's tied into this. I don't think it's out of bounds to say, hey, if I expect Delano number 4 to speak a certain way, I ought to watch those words in my vocabulary as well.
And it's a shame that we do that to educators. They are not students. It says students there. Yeah, if they're doing that, they should be penalized or they should get in trouble. But to say an adult, I'm going to my job. You have a cell phone on your job. And if I come in there, you have a cell phone. So we keep treating teachers like they're children. They are not children. Now, if they do something out of whack, or they shouldn't be in the front of the classroom doing that, but just to say you can't have a cell phone on your job. I'm employed, I'm not a student. And we keep acting like teachers are students and they're not, and that's what I don't like.
Yeah, I think you missed me on that one. I'm not saying this policy should apply to teachers.
You are saying?
I'm saying teachers should model the behavior that they want of the child. And that's what I'm saying, and I expect that from any adult, not just a teacher.
Right, but
if I want kids to be off their phone, I should be off my phone.
And every teacher's not doing that, like every student's not doing that. So, but society keeps saying that. The teachers, that's all you heard. Well, what are the teachers going to do? What are the teachers going to do? They're going to do their job.
I think that becomes a campus concern. The principal is responsible for the teachers. If the principal is monitoring everything adequately, that can be taken care of as well by addressing it appropriately. So I think that that's something that is beyond the policy that we're talking about at this point. the principals are responsible for that in all regards, in regards to any teacher that they have on their campus. So that goes without saying. So if that student knows that teacher is having a problem, she maybe should talk to the principal. He or she should talk to the principal. So it can be addressed officially, but it shouldn't be a policy associated with that. That's a matter of conduct within the classroom.
We have a
that
policy
teacher's
of
supposed
that,
to have.
Trustee Newsom.
Yeah.
We have in our,
Right.
in our handbook, we have a policy about cell phone use for all employees, teachers
Right.
included. So there is a policy.
Okay.
And
Well,
I'm
just
not
have to
saying we
enforce it.
add this one to them, but we need to model behavior. We need to be conscious of what we're doing. And by us, I mean everybody.
Teachers certainly don't need to be doing TikToks in their classrooms.
Right.
If kids are doing TikTok, or at school, teachers should not be doing TikToks at school.
Period.
No.
Let
they
me
should not
repeat that. At any time of the day, there should not be a TikTok that has any semblance of a facility being done at a facility of Tyler ISD. So there's a statement for you right there, Mr. Lisea. So they should not be doing that. I would hope that teachers aren't bullying each other like kids do with these devices. So, yeah, there's no doubt that we don't need to be on our phones looking at YouTube videos that give us a giggle or scrolling through TikTok through the day, even during our off period. We should be working on the work. That's what you're trying to say, and I appreciate that. That's exactly right. We should be modeling it appropriately. I do have some concerns about, let me hit the adult side of this first. Some of our emergency signaling comes through a device. Some things where you can't take a phone call or it's not appropriate to be on your phone if you're observing a classroom may come via a device. So there's going to have to be some things fleshed out with the adults and what the expectations are on that, reinforced. There's no doubt about it. We hear you loud and clear. We don't need to be doing things that are juvenile if we're the adults. But there's going to be some things that we need to talk about. I keep saying we need to go back to the 1980s, but things are different than the 1980s. There's some certain things that we have to worry about now. Is there? Let me hit it from the kids' point of view, and even from our staff as far as communicating. What about dual credit in early college, high school, with some of the online learning things that there are that require dual authentication to log on to?
Yeah, that's a good point.
There's just some things that have just kind of popped up into my head. Extracurricular activities. Let's say you're a softball player and so you don't disrupt the entire campus. Mr. Jones and I, Hillcrest High School, back in the day, used to get chewed out by our faculty because we were coming on saying bus 32 is now going to be bus 45. Remember those days?
I do.
Or the softball game, the team's not going to leave now till 5 o'clock. You're supposed to leave at 4. Now that's handled through apps, and it's very effective that way. I'm worried about that. Speaking of transportation, we're going to eventually get to the point where we can communicate which bus is late. We've got some apps that are out there right now that kids look at along with their parents and coordinate that way as well. What about watches? I mean, that's almost banned through here. So if someone's got an Apple Watch, yes, it could text message off of that. I don't text message off my Apple Watch, but I use it for other things like health data, but I'm still going to wear it. Does that mean if it's not put away in my backpack, that is something that we have to discipline? That's just a concern that I have. Along with other district-issued devices, they're going to find ways to communicate with each other inside the district-issued devices that we're using. I mean, I've already been given the strategy on that in my own house. So those are some things we're going to have to really work on, that this sudden shift needs to be one to where we adopt it and it becomes part of our culture. And so I don't think overnight we're going to be sitting here thinking that this is going to be a straight running cutoff. And we'll go back and look at the fees. I've had some thoughts just as we've been talking here. I still think they need to have some assessments in there. Maybe not as draconian up front right away. Maybe we can delay them a little bit towards the back. I don't know, We'll talk about it so that we can get there. My dad's even calling me wanting to talk to me about cell phones, apparently. Man. Those are some things that we'll try to flesh out between now and the second reading because we were not allowed to devise this local policy locally because of the constraints that we have in there. I'll be honest with you, we first talked about it, at least at the high school level. I mean, the middle schools are pretty much there, correct? I mean, I know that they're already charging $15 for a penalty. Is that correct?
Yeah, all of our middle schools charged $15 this year for collected cell phones, and they all had the same practice of out of sight when you walk on campus. It goes in your backpack, it goes off in your backpack.
Now, fidelity between the 4 middle schools.
Can I just say,
I don't
and my
know.
daughter's at one of those middle schools, and she never, ever, ever texted me or used her phone the whole time.
Yeah.
Never. If she needed me that bad, she went to the office and used the office phone.
Yeah, that is one
It
thing.
works.
Every one of our classrooms do have phones in their classrooms. Thank you, voters. Thank you, taxpayers, for providing that for us. That's a security thing for us as well that our parents can use. That our teachers can use at their discretion if a kid needs to call someone. So that's kind of old school. I'm glad to see that. So we'll kind of go through some of this stuff as we're going forward between now and the next reading. It was a healthy discussion. Is there anything else y'all would like us to take a look at on that specifically, other than what you talked about?
I'd just really like to see what you come back with on like the multi-factor authentication stuff, because we use that so much in everyday work when you're logging in that I'm almost like, you can't have a computer and not have a cell phone. So what kind of workarounds are you going to find there?
We need to talk about that. And I'll go back to this. We were going to talk about at the high schools a gap in there during lunch, not so that they could get their fix on, which is what it is sometimes. But when I go back to checking whether or not a coach has sent me a reminder in Sport U that our game time has changed, we've got to figure out how we're going to get those things. If we're not going to do this, we've got to get how we're going to get those. We probably can do it through. And for the parents that are out there watching, did you know that each one of your children have a district-issued email?
So can't those sports shoes be attached that way?
I'm going to go look at that.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Or-
Yeah. And you know what?
I don't know.
It's a good way to document those conversations in case they are inappropriate. So, I mean, I'm not just on coaches to staff, but I'm talking about between students as well. If they're going to use our district email system, Chief Walsworth and Agent Millsagel, to bully each other, that's a little bit easier to chase than trying to get a hold of Apple or somebody, right? So, give some time to do that. We'll have something ready for you to answer some of those questions about the dual factor authentication or whatever it's called. And then the communication with extracurricular activities, transportation, all that goofy stuff that I just brought up.
I have 2 quick things. One is just a reminder that the reason we're talking about this is because the state law passed a law that says that we have to do this, right? And so they didn't pass a law that we have to do anything with teachers and their cell phones, for one. But the other thing is, just from a practical standpoint, I really, really appreciate setting the tone in middle school, because I feel like it's going to be easier as those kids now get older. The hard part is going to be with the kids in high school now, and then working through some of the issues that you have there. So, whatever we can do to provide some flexibility with those things would be great. But I 100% agree with everything Lindsay said. And my kid has had a job this summer and he can't text while he's working. So it's really great. And that's how it should be at school too. So appreciate the hard work on that.
Okay. Any more questions?
Madam President, I move to adjourn.
Well, you forgot about the legislative update,
Legislative
sir.
update.
We've talked enough about stuff from the legislature.
Future business.
Future business, okay. July 31st, summer school graduation. Board workshop, August 7th. School is cool, August 7th. First day of school for students is August 13th, and regular meeting will be August 25th. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Meeting adjourned.